Hi, and welcome back to the History Hut. When we last spoke, we were talking about what Mongol life was like before they became the big show. And we're also talking about Mongol women. So let's talk a little more about that.
Yeah, I was saying to you the last time that Mongol women were really influential. I mean, if they're at the kind of lowest level, ordinary society, obviously, you know, they help in the survival of the group. And then at the top, they're really influential. And a couple of really good examples from the secret history of the Mongols, published just after
Not so secret anymore.
No, published just after the death of, or written just after the death of Genghis Khan, talks quite a bit about women. So it talks about Borte, Genghis Khan's wife, this first wife, the one that was, I don't know if you know, was kidnapped by the evil Merkits. And when she came back 10 months later, of course, she had a baby called Jochi. And then there was a lot of fuss about whether Jochi was actually Genghis's son, or, you know, the son of the rotten marauders that
So they would have been on the early version of Maury.
That's right. Maury would have been right in there with all the DNA stuff. You're quite right. And I don't know if they would have sorted it out, so if they'd been able to sort it out. So she's actually very influential in his relationship with his kind of blood brother. And so, you know, she's a lot of influence there. Also, the secret history of the Mongols talks about Holon, who is his mother, and the important role that she played after the poisoning, the killing of her husband. Another one with a great name, Sorkatani Beki. Yeah, she's the wife of Tulu and the mother of Kublai and Hulagu and Monke. And it says at least in the secret history of the Mongols, that she explained to her sons that they couldn't go in and just destroy the economy of places that they conquered, and also she thought that they should show religious tolerance and that they should maybe learn the local religions. So again, very influential, and she's actually talked about by I think it's Carpini, one of the Europeans that goes into the area and says, you know, if everybody was like Sorkatani, this race of women would be better than any race of men, or words to that effect, you know, just a kind of one up for chicks. Kublai's one of his wife's Chabi, she's quite influential, and I was saying to somebody the other day, his niece Cthulhu, supposed to be absolutely stunningly beautiful, but also really powerful. And her kind of part of her story is that she said her parents wanted her to marry well, of course, and she said, well, I'll only marry anyone that can beat me in wrestling. And so all the men had to give like 100 horses as their part of the bet, and soon I think her family had like 10,000 horses. and at the end, they actually this really cool kind of Prince Charming comes along, and her parents are like, oh, come on, Cthulhu, come on, just let him beat you, and she won't, and he has, I think he brings 1,000 horses.
Oh, wow.
And leaves them behind. So she's another example. But you know, at the ordinary level as well, women trained to fight, and of course would go with the forces as they moved in all those different directions that we're going to be talking about. So this secret history of the Mongols is very interesting, and I didn't realize that it hadn't been translated into English until the 1980s, but it's the translation that we have comes from a Chinese translation in the Ming period, so the 14th century, and then it was translated, I think, into English, yeah, well, obviously much later on. So we don't have the original, but we know what's in the secret history, so that's okay. The other person, for anybody that's interested in Mongol women, is the author Jack Weatherford, and his latest book, he's written quite a lot about the Mongols, but his latest book, I think I'll probably get it wrong, is The Secret History of the Mongol Queens, and it just shows you actually how women had the story of what women, Genghis's family had been doing was kind of taken out of the secret history of the Mongols, but that you can actually see Genghis placing his daughters into really powerful positions and then marrying them off to less powerful men so that they would be the most powerful in the region. It's a real cracking read. It's a cracking good read, so it is. Yeah, so, you know, and it's unusual that in a society where there's no written language that you'd find it a lot bit women. So
Yeah,
it's good.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Did the Mongols follow any type of religion?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that. They were shamanistic. There's still a shamanistic movement, of course, in Mongolia and Siberia to this very day. It's kind of a revived. It's called Tengriism because Tengri was the name of the sky god, and so they prayed to the sky god Tengri, and they also prayed to the fertility goddess and Mother Earth. And so, because the sky was so important, their sacred color was blue. And they prayed in high places, so they would pray at mountains, and they also played. Yeah, they played a lot. They prayed at running water, so they didn't kind of wash their clothes in the river or wash anything in the river because it was seen as sacred to them. And they're really tolerant, as Sir Katani Becky had tried to show her boys, really tolerant of other religions. And what you find is that when they conquered places, they would usually take on the religion of that place. So they'd have like Islamic parts and Buddhist parts, and so they usually converted to local religious beliefs. But nobody, I don't think any outsiders ever kind of converted to their kind of way. But they had shamans, and the shamans wore white and rode white horses, and they had female and male shamans that could commune with the spirits, and they saw everything going in a cyclical nature. And yeah, so they did have a religion, but it's just not one that they were able to.
A very open religion.
Not one they were able to share with other people, and the other people going, oh, that one sounds way better than ours. I think we'll have that one.
Yeah. Let's talk about Genghis Khan. We've heard little bits and pieces, but let's get right to it.
Yeah, the big boy. Well, he doesn't start off as Genghis, of course. He's not any kind of leader. He's born about 1155 as Temujin, which is a nice name. His dad, I think we mentioned before, was Yasugi Khaldun, and his father was killed when he was about 12, and his mother and the children were kind of moved out of their clan area. Now, normally what happens when a father dies is the oldest son looks after the wives, but at 12 he was too young for that. So he kind of goes about from place to place, and we don't really find out a lot about him until about maybe 1200, 1204, and by that time he's re-emerged as this really charismatic young guy, gathers followers wherever he goes, people really like him, and by about 1204 he's actually him and his little group of homies all managed to kind of conquer all the other people in all the other little groups in the area. And by 1206, suddenly there he is on the world scene. They hold an assembly, all these different people hold an assembly. It's called a Kurultai. And at the assembly, he is recognized as the leader of all of these people. So he takes on the title of chief. So he's not Temujin anymore. He's Genghis Khan. Because remember, I think I mentioned that Yasugi, his father, had his people believed that they had been ruled by great leaders or khans before. So he's called Genghis Khan, and he calls himself, and he's referred to as the Prince of all that lies between the oceans. Pretty nifty title.
Pretty good
Doesn't
title.
even know where the oceans are. I think he's been landlocked, but he must know about them. So I think his real gift was the insights that he had about what was needed to unite people and to keep them united.
And how did he do that?
Well, we see this. This is a kind of constant problem through world history. How do you break the most fundamental of ties? The most fundamental of ties, of course, are kinship ties. So how could somebody come between, say, if we were related, how would somebody come between us? Well, that could never happen. You would think, I don't know. So what he did was he disregarded clan ties, tribal ties, family ties. So if you think about the territory, and you've got lots and lots of little groups of family groups and clan groups all over the place, normally they would fight probably as a unit against other clans. So what he does is he breaks them all up, and so guy from clan 1, clan 3, clan 5 are in here as clan 4, and so you just kind of mix everybody up from all the different areas. So when they fight, they're not fighting necessarily beside blood kin. They're just bound in loyalty to him as the leader. So you have to get people to go beyond this kinship thing and go give their loyalty more towards a kind of abstract idea of the leader, and hopefully that's That works. And he also used a new code of behaviour, and his code of behaviour was called the Yasa. It was the law that he created. Now, it's really interesting because if you look at the first 9 things in the Yasa, we only have fragments of it, but the first 9 things in the Yasa all call for the death penalty. So a bit of a, a bit of a theme.
Pretty strict.
Yeah, a bit of a theme. So the death penalty for spying, desertion, and theft. But other things as well. One of them is if you're riding along on campaign and something falls off the back of your horse and the guy behind you doesn't stop and pick it up, death penalty for him. Yeah.
What if it falls out of the horse?
Death cab for cutie. Yeah. Oh, if it falls out of the horse, I think that's okay. That's entirely
Pooper
different.
scooper?
Yeah. Oh, that's terrible. So no death penalty for that. No taxes on religious men. Religious toleration. And no laws would affect the Yasa, like no laws could kind of overturn it. So that's really useful. And he also reorganized his fighting group. You might want to,
Oh, so some interesting military techniques and tactics.
Absolutely.
Is that what we're getting to here?
That's what we're getting to here. So he raised troops in groups. The Arban was 10, the Jagun was 100, the Mingan was 1,000, and then the most important one, the real professional corps was called the Tuman, and that was 10,000. And the great thing about Mongolian military forces is that you didn't get the job, like a job as leader, just based on the fact that you were hanging out with Genghis Khan at the weekend. It was one of your buddies. Everybody was led, each from the Arban on, was led by a man who'd already excelled in battle. So people that were battle hardened, lots of experience. So it's merit rather than blood or rank. And then he attached his men to really powerful leaders called Nokor. And all of his senior officers came from the rank of chief, and the name for that was Noyan. So he has this corps of 10,000 as well that are his personal bodyguard, and there are leaders of the personal bodyguard too. So everything's kind of decimalized. Who knew that he would invent the decimal system? Kind of cool. They also had arrow messengers, and the arrow messengers could travel 140 miles a day. They would have 4 fresh mounts with them and be on the 4th horse and the 5th horse, and then they would recite their messages. It's considered a kind of postal system. It's called Yam. They would recite their messages in poetics or in song because, of course, they're illiterate, so they can't kind of hand over a little message. His men all participated, not just his men, everybody participated in the annual hunt called the Nerge, Nerge. All of the soldiers obeyed the Yasa, and everybody was paid because no money. Everybody's paid in the booty, in the loot that they took from whatever campaign they were on. So everybody's paid from that. And then in this great social welfare network, they would all put a portion of that back into the common pot. And if you were disabled or killed, then your family could draw on the loot pot.
All right, then. Well, we'll see you then in episode 3 of the History Hut.